Please join me in welcoming His Excellency Kasit Piromya.
Dear Dean Gert, professors, friends from the diplomatic corps, students, teachers. But I'm happy to be here, and this is my third visit to Qatar. The first two times was in my official capacity as the Foreign Minister, and I did come to the education city. I was extremely impressed and very interested, and with that in mind also, I was trying to find out how this education city would relate to the future of Qatar. And I did meet some of the ambassadors at the luncheon today. And one of the questions is how I look at the future of Qatar in view of the Arab Spring, the globalization era at the moment where liberalization opening up and so on. And I feel quite optimistic for Qatar if the investment in the education for the next few years, and with the depletion of the gas and oil, the Qatari will take the future in its own hands, manage the wealth all over the world, and manage itself also as an open society. So I wish Qatari to go in the way of the other Arab countries of the past 3 or 4 years. And also of some of the countries in Southeast Asia, Myanmar in particular, which was under military rule for 40 years. And I think democracy is blossoming in Myanmar, I think to the surprise of everyone concerned. But it's going on, and I'm sure Myanmar will be playing a very contributive role to the ASEAN community and to the Asia Pacific. And hopefully Qatar is, I think, almost every day in the news, hosting sports event, climate change, or the global issues and so on. So hopefully that in a few years' time, Qatar will also host an international conference on the promotion of democracy in the Gulf states. So that's my introductory remarks. Now the subject at hand on the Southeast Asian role for the food security. I would like to start with Thailand. We are more or less #1 exporter of rice, #1 in cassava, manioc or tapioca, sugar, in the marine products, shrimps, canned tuna, and so on. And I think Indonesia is #1 in the palm oil. Malaysia has both palm oils. Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand also have coffee. And Vietnam is maybe taking over as #1 ahead of Thailand in terms of rice export. And Myanmar has a great future to be another food cradle or food kitchen of the world. So overall, I think Southeast Asia ranks maybe combined, I think the first top 10 of the world in terms of the food production and food export. And there is no food shortage, there is no famine in Southeast Asia. So we feel confident that we can be the supplier of food for the decades to come. And I think I failed to mention also in terms of poultry, I think we combine only after, maybe second only to Brazil. And the fact that I think half of us are Muslims, so we can also compete in the halal food industry also. And about 3 weeks ago, I was in Brazil, and one of my itineraries was to meet a couple of Brazilian food exporters and also the certification company for the halal food export. So we even looked onto the possibility of combining with the Brazilian company to a sort of a trilateral cooperation to work together to export food into the Middle East. So when it comes to the food security, Southeast Asian country as a whole can be a very important player. Now, moving across the sea into the Middle East, into the Gulf states in particular, you have a lot of oil and gas, so you are very secured on the energy supply. So the first thing that comes to mind is the complementarity of Southeast Asia and the Gulf states in terms of we are short of energy, we have surplus of food. So if the concept of complementarity were to be played out, then the Gulf state can provide the energy security to us, and vice versa, the food one we can provide to the Gulf states. Then how do we go about it? I think there are about 4 or 5 alternatives or options. First is to make a long-term contract, 5 to 10 years of rice supply, vegetable oil or marine products, and so on. That is one possibility. The second one is to have joint ventures, and I think there could be 2 types of joint ventures. Joint ventures where the Gulf states invest in the farm activities in Southeast Asia with existing companies. And in countries like, I think, the Philippines, you can purchase land, but in Thailand we do not sell land to farming entities. So it has to be a sort of a contractual between the private sector and the farming or the farmers or farming community. They can enter into joint venture activities. The third option would be to go into third countries. I have heard that some of the Gulf states did buy land in Africa, I think in Sudan, or Egypt, or Somalia, or Ethiopia, and so on. But they can have joint venture arrangement with some of our experts in the food production in terms of the management of the farm in Africa. Like if you own a hotel chain, then we sell the management. So that type of joint venture is to the Gulf state, and some of the Thai or Philippines or Indonesian companies can go together into third country, namely in Africa, in order to produce food items according to the needs of the Gulf state. The other option is to create a stockpile, which in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia through the ASEAN +3 dialogue, namely with Japan, China, and South Korea. These 10 + 3, 10 ASEAN countries and so on, we did come out with the concept of the stockpile. And Thailand, as a major food exporting country, pledged, say, 50,000 tons of rice into the stockpile for emergency situation. So we can have the stockpile on land, or you can have the floating stockpile where rice or other food items is being kept, and they can be shipped here and float around here, or they can be floated in Southeast Asia and taken to the Gulf state in times of need. The other option is to work with the international organizations or the UN agencies, particularly the World Food Program, and to do maybe on two levels. One as a food aid to third country. Second is emergency stockpile in terms of disaster situation and so on. The other point that one could work together between the two regions is in terms of research and development, not only for food but also the food for energy. At this point in time in Thailand, when we were in the government, we have already launched the alternative and renewable energy from tapioca, palm oil, and sugar molasses. We don't have enough maize and corn because that is being used for human and for animal feeds and for other industrial uses and so on. So we don't have the surplus like the United States or Brazil. But with tapioca and palm oil and the molasses, we are in the position to produce alternative energy. And I think looking into the future, and with the fact that there is now a special organization, I think based in Abu Dhabi, specializing in the renewable and alternative energy, this is something that we could work together with the Gulf states for the eventuality that you turn away from oil and gas into alternative energy, and I think agricultural produce could be turned into energy. And from the Thai point of view, we have no split personality between food for human consumption and food for energy. We are quite confident that for the next decades to come, we could do both. We can supply food to the world, we can make the food security for the world, but at the same time to have some of the agricultural produce diverted into the alternative and renewable energy production. Then if one could agree on the joint undertaking, whether it's long-term contract or through the counter purchase or barter trade and so on, then and also to have the stockpile or the go down to keep the food item. The work that one has to do in a very thorough manner is on the distribution question, and whether the Gulf states could work together and have one sort of center for distribution, or it could be spread into many among the various cities of the Gulf states and so on. But the fact that we have the ASEAN GCC dialogue, which meets I think every 2 years, the food security cooperation as well as the energy security cooperation could be worked together hand in hand, and there must be I think internal coordination on both sides to ensure the volume, the pricing, the stockpile, and the transportation. And I think also to set aside to work with the World Food Program as part of the humanitarian aid in the emergency situation. Incidentally, when there was the earthquake in Haiti a few years back, Thailand was the biggest contributor in terms of the humanitarian assistance. We provided the largest amount of rice, about 20,000 tons. And as a result of that, I did also make a visit to Rome, to the World Food Program. And we did discuss extensively on how to work together to provide food in an emergency situation, whether we could do the swap arrangements and so on, that anything that happens in the Asia-Pacific region and on the east coast of Africa, the World Food Program could use Thai rice instead of having to ship the food, from one corner to the other, and so on. So the swap arrangement could also be thought about. And I think the Gulf state, with so much of the financial endowment, would also play a very important role in terms of the humanitarian assistance. Now, so my point to all of you is that Southeast Asia can provide a food security to the world, and we can do that with the Gulf states in particular, in view of the fact that food is short here, and the type of agricultural produce that we have do cater very well to the incoming laborers from the Indian subcontinent and from Southeast Asia. So there is a market for it, and there is a need for the assurance that food supply will be on a continuous and firm basis. And what it needs now is more of the political dialogue. And the issue has been discussed many times, but it's an on and off situation. And hopefully, within the course of this year, the two sides, the Gulf state and the ASEAN leaders could sit together and plot the story and have a sort of a roadmap. And I think we could realize the objective of the food security without any difficulty. Because in practice, we do export some of the food item already, but it could, I think, be the arrangement could be done on a more concrete and firmer basis. So I could end this short introductory remarks by giving the most assurance that whatever you want to eat, we can supply on land, in the sea, and so on. And we are confident that we could deliver on our part.